You are enrolled on an introductory biology course, and I guess that the good first question is, what is biology? Well, in fact, we define biology as the scientific study of life. And there are two important components to this definition. First of all, that biology studies the life. So living things are what we will be focusing on this course. The other important take-home message from this is that biology is very much a science, something that we use scientific principles to study. I don't know about you guys, but in my mind, the very first question after that is that, well, what makes something living then? What is the definition of life? Now, that's going to be a bit more challenging question. And if we think of life, life is incredibly diverse. So, how can we classify all these forms of life and many, many, many more that aren't included and find things that are common that they all share? Well, we biologists have come up with 7 properties of life that all living things share. And it is this list really that summarizes pretty much all your future biology courses. In your different college level biology courses, we might focus on different aspects of these, but fundamentally, if I were to say that there is one important slide for you to know, it probably would be this one. So let's go through each of these characteristics one by one, and remember, we will be coming back to these in a greater detail a little later on. Well, the first of all, life is made of ordered structures. Other than single-celled organisms, all living things are typically made of a bunch of cells. And these cells are grouped into specific types of lumps, which we know as tissues. So there is some sort of an organization. Even in a single cell, we find certain organization, certain organelles, and these are the little structures within the cell that we will be talking about later in this course. And these certain organelles are at certain places and do certain things. So there is overall an order in all life. The second thing that we see is that living things are able to reproduce. And this brings us back to the question, which one was first, the egg or the chicken? Really, I think that that is not the vital question. What matters is that for you to have been able to come about, there must have been parents of yours, and they have given rise to you. And ultimately, you will be likely to give a rise to the next generation, and so on, and so on, and so on. So, not only are you produced by your mother's egg and father's sperm cell joining together, you do not remain as this fertilized egg cell, which we actually call zygote, for the rest of your life. No, you must grow, and even after being born, you must develop. You must be going through a constant process of growth and development. And students often ask me, when does this end? When do we stop developing? And I can answer either at death, which is a very morbid attitude, or if we think of us as a species evolving in a larger scale, I guess the answer would be never. Well, the next thing that I want to mention is that to exist, to stay alive, we must power various processes in our body and how we interact with the environment as well. And all these processes require energy. So we must be able to extract energy and we must be able to use energy. I already slightly touched upon on this next concept of ours. We use energy, for example, to maintain consistent internal environment. This is what we call homeostasis, which is a concept that we will talk about later on, and it's going to be an overarching concept in your biology studies. It's something really, really important. But really, what this is about having conditions inside us that are suitable to sustain life. And this is something that comes to the fact that we must regulate things. In this case, we'd be regulating our internal conditions. Well, what are we having to do this regulation for? Well, the environment around us may not be ideal for our survival, so we respond to that. As an example, when the sun shines too hot here in Arizona, we seek for shadow, we drink water to stay hydrated, and we avoid activities that make us lose a lot of fluids through sweating. We respond to the environment around us. In this picture, plants are leaning towards light because they need that light to do photosynthesis. They respond to that light. But do remember that even the simplest one-celled bacteria responds to their environment. When the environment is not good, they try to swim away from there. Finally, if we look at many generations, we are not the same. All living things are going through a gradual addition of changes that make them more successful and better suited in their environment. And this is what we call evolution. All living things evolve. So I think that we really see how this list is everything that we need to know about life. There are some oddities as viruses that are considered by some as being alive, but they still do not fully meet all these criteria. They're called our organisms at the edge of life. But at large, this really is the list that summarizes what is life. So that's a pretty cool achievement. Today we will start by focusing on the first of the aspects that we've listed here. And all living things are organized. That's the first thing that we agreed on. So we have something that is known as a hierarchy of organization. It covers all life from the smallest units to the human scale and all the way to the global scale. So let's look at this diagram. The smallest things that students often mention to me when I ask them to name the smallest things that they know are cells. And that is true. Cell is the smallest independently existing, or living if you wish, thing that we know. But we can go smaller. We can talk about cell organelles, which we will do at the later chapters in a couple of weeks. Or we can talk about atoms. This we will do in chapter 2, so pretty soon. Or we can, if we want to go even smaller, we can talk about subatomic particles. These are the small parts that make up atoms. But then we can go all the way up to the scale of a human, number of humans living together in the same area, them interacting with the environment where they're at, and all the way to the biosphere, our Earth as one living, interacting thing. So I think that this is a good time for me to tell one of my favorite biology jokes. Why you should never trust an atom? Well, of course, because they make up everything. Well, this is a good time for us to take a break, and in our next video, we will differentiate between the energy and nutrients. How differently they are reused, or are they reused at all?